It's time for another episode of MoState Update, the official podcast of Missouri State Athletics. Here are your hosts, Corey Riggs, and the voice of the Bears, Art Hains.
Welcome to our third episode of MoState Update. I'm Art Hains along with Corey Riggs. We'll be covering a variety of things regarding Missouri State Athletics. Starting out, Corey, with the Murney Student Athlete of the Week, that's Rylan Finley from volleyball.
Yeah, the outside hitter, or a former Republic Lady Tiger, and she had a great week this week. Hit .316, averaged 4.86 kills, 4.93 points per game in 2 matches. And this is a lot of talent and production coming from a freshman. She hit .538 with 17 kills on 26 swings to lead the Bears and had a .438 team hitting efficiency. That was in the sweep of Belmont, and put together another really good performance against Murray State as well. So we just had Coach Mack on a couple of episodes ago, or an episode ago, and he told us that there was a lot of young talent on this team. Rylan Finley, one of those, and that's why she's your Murney Student Athlete of the Week.
Well, the Missouri Valley Football Conference Offensive Lineman of the Week is Bears center Cash Hudson. The league announced that on Monday afternoon. Cash anchored an MSU unit that rolled up 575 total yards, 300 on the ground, 49 points, 28 first downs. He compiled a 98% assignment grade, 96% effort, and 90% technique grade in the victory.
I would like somebody to come on and explain to us. Maybe we could get Max Halpin on an upcoming episode. I would love to know how the grading system works for offensive linemen, because I don't know how you grade effort. I know I was always told never to question effort as a broadcaster or as the parent of a youth athlete, but a 96% effort grade sounds really good to me.
Yeah, it does to me, too. You know, you always got the Russian judge in there throwing things off. Well, speaking of Bears football, great win, hard fought at Northern Iowa on Saturday, 49-42. The Bears Thunder and Lightning of Jacardier Wright and Jaden Becks both went over 100 rushing yards. They combined for 253 between the two of them and 4 touchdowns. Bears picked up their 6th straight win by scoring 7 touchdowns out of 11 offensive possessions.
Yep, that really ended up being a game, Art, that came down to, in the third quarter, the Bears defense getting a stop, and that was the quarter where Missouri State outscored Northern Iowa 21-7. Jacardier Wright, both of his touchdowns came in the third quarter. And did you see the picture of Jacardier hurdling one of the secondary guys for Northern Iowa? That could have been on the cover of Sports Illustrated if that was still a thing that we got all the time. But that was one of the most amazing images I saw from that game, and an incredible effort by both running backs. They're very different style. Jacardier, though, definitely was high-flying in the third quarter, and that ended up being the difference for Missouri State.
Quarterback Jacob Clark, again, 20 of 29 passing, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he rushed for 47 yards. So now the Bears are home against Southern Illinois this Saturday at 2 o'clock. And they've beaten Northern Iowa probably the last meeting in some time, but they've beaten them 4 of the last 5 meetings.
Yep, I say this is a very interesting Southern Illinois team that's going to come to town. I've been talking to the play-by-play voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin. I don't know, as much as we talked about injuries on the offensive line at the start of the season for Missouri State, can you imagine being on your 3rd or 4th quarterback of the season? That's where Southern Illinois is coming into this week. They have struggled and definitely not had the season they wanted, but it's still another Missouri Valley Conference matchup, and not an opponent that there's just no opponents in this league that you can take lightly.
Yeah, as SIU found out when they lost to Indiana State.
Yes, sir. And they got outscored. Southern Illinois scored the first 17 points in that game. It was 17-0 at the half. Sycamore scored 20 unanswered points to take the win.
More awards for Coach Nelson's women's soccer team. Soccer players Jenna Anderson and Julia Christensen were named Missouri Valley Conference Defender and Player of the Week. In his first season of regular season play, Anderson led a defense that only allowed the opponents 5 more shots in the total of 2 games. Bears held Valparaiso to 0 shots on goal in their
which is unheard of.
And that wrapped up the Missouri Valley Conference regular season outright.
Yep, and now all of that means for the postseason, the Bears have won the regular season crown. The Bears now have won the right to host the semifinals and final matches of the Valley Tournament right here across the street from our location at Great Southern Bank Arena at the Betty and Bobby Allison South Soccer Stadium. The first time Missouri State women's soccer will play is November 7th at 6 o'clock, because the way it works in the Valley women's soccer bracket, Art, is they basically get a bye in the first round and the second round and go straight to the semifinals, which will be here November 7th.
You bet. That's next Thursday, and then the championship is that weekend. Exhibition basketball at Great Southern Bank Arena Tuesday night. The new-look Bears, all new players, led by 17 points from Michael Anse Bonsu. He is a big man, 6'8", 6'4", 280.
Yeah, they call him Big Mike, and I think everybody's going to start calling him Big Mike. I think Charlie Pentecost, our PA guy, is going to want to call him Big Mike. One, it shortens up the name, and two, he was by far the most impressive player, at least in the first half. You and I were both courtside for this. Art, he plays much bigger than 6'4", but at 280, he is a load. He plays with his back to the basket, very traditional, maybe old school basketball, to just take the ball and dribble and kind of back your man down, and he's got a really nice little hook shot to go into his offensive repertoire. But there were other people. How about the coach's son, Chase Martin, the former Purdue Boilermaker, looked good.
Yeah, he had 11 points off the bench. Des White scored 11. Jalen Hampton had kind of a sneaky double-double with 10 points, 10 rebounds. So the Bears did have trouble shooting free throws, but they made their last 8 to put the game away.
Yeah, I think at one point in time you and I looked at the stat sheet, and the Bears were about 3 of 11 from the free throw line. That flipped on its ear to get them to about 50-50 by the end of the game. That was a tough watch at times last night. The Bears were picked 11th out of 12 in the Valley. Southwest Baptist University was picked 15 out of 15 in the GLVC. And they, of course, came in, playing like this was their Super Bowl, a chance with the D1 opponent. Some of the players, I should point out, a couple of them were Missouri guys, including Drew McMillan, who was a Republic Tiger. So those guys obviously had some fans in the stands and wanted to show out for them. But SBU acquitted themselves very well. But, not to make excuses, but Missouri State coach Martin held about 3 players back last night that we will probably see suit up and play significant minutes on Monday night for the season opener at Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse.
And then the following Monday they'll be at home against Missouri Southern for the conference, not conference, but the home opener for Missouri State. Earlier in the day, Tuesday, both Coach Martin and Lady Bear coach Beth Cunningham were at the annual Great Southern Bank Tip-Off Luncheon at White River Conference Center. Always a really nice event, and both coaches gave some candid responses about their team.
I tell you what, Art, I was kind of blown away. I've said that Conzo Martin, in his second stint at Missouri State, is obviously not the same coach that he was the first time around. It was his first head coaching assignment. But there is a lot. Conzo is a much bigger picture guy now, and it is a lot about what opportunities these young men get. And there was a kind of a pointed question about, how do you handle the transfer portal and making sure these guys get an education? And Conzo was very quick to rebuff the question with remarks about what is the community doing for these student athletes. Do they accept them? Do they support them? Do they get them a job after their playing days are done here? I found those comments to be very timely in a world where we're talking about players being able to jump ship every year and change schools. So it was interesting to hear Conzo's comments, and also to hear Beth Cunningham, who somebody, their follow-up was, Coach Cunningham, would you like to comment? And she's like, no, I think Conzo did a fine job on that one all on his own. But
she did.
Great Southern Bank does a great job putting that event on. Joe Turner had some nice comments early on, and of course the Bears' new athletic director Patrick Ransdell was involved as well. So a lot of fun at that event, and a great way to kind of remind everybody that basketball season is here.
Lady Bears have their exhibition game next Monday night at 7 o'clock, or maybe 6. Missouri State women's and men's diving competed against Drury Panthers Saturday at Breach Pool. They'd played Friday night at Hammond's Pool and then over at Drury the next day. The women won both meets with Drury 130-74 on Saturday. The men lost both. They will remain in Springfield next weekend hosting Omaha for a 2-day meet at Hammond's Pool Friday and Saturday.
Yep. So you get the duel in the pool last week. Now Omaha comes to town, and Friday and Saturday here on campus are going to be very busy. As we wrap up the show a little bit later, we'll run through the entire calendar for later this week and what games and events you can make your way out to this weekend if you're in and around the campus here at Missouri State.
We'll hear from men's and women's swimming and diving coach Dave Collins on our next segment of the show. Also this weekend, a number of other events going on Friday night, swimming and diving home against Omaha at 5 o'clock, volleyball home against Valpo at 6 o'clock within the same building at Hammond's. If you want more, 7 o'clock, Betty and Bobby Allison South, the nationally ranked soccer Bears, are in conference action against the Evansville Purple Aces.
Yep, so a lot to see and do this week around the campus.
Indeed there are. And Saturday, 3 more events. The pool against Omaha again, part 2. Coach Beard's nationally ranked football Bears home 2 o'clock against SIU. And last but not least, Coach Mack's volleyball Bears at home 5 o'clock against UIC.
Yep, should be a lot of fun. I say if you can't find something to do on campus this weekend, you're not really trying, I don't think.
You bet. Well, when we come back, we will visit with Missouri State swim coach Dave Collins as MoState Update continues. Welcome back to MoState Update, and our first guest this week is men's and women's swimming and diving coach Dave Collins. Dave, kind of getting toward the end of the fall season, how would you say it's gone overall?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and obviously having men and women, we're in probably 2 different spots with both those teams. The men are pretty heavy on upperclassmen, whereas on the women's side we're very young. So we've kind of seen that in our early meets. Where the guys have had some pretty good results at times, and then the women really just kind of blossomed this past weekend against Drury. So it's been a good fall. We still got a long ways to go, though.
Split the weekend with Drury. This year played or swam Friday at Missouri State and Saturday at Drury.
Yeah, it's great to have such a good team to compete against that's 8 blocks down the road.
Yep.
It's for our budget. It's the best thing in the world because it costs me a couple $100 of Jimmy John's sandwiches, and that's about it. The kids drive themselves to that meet. There's no bus. Heck, they could probably walk. So it's great that we can do that, and obviously the team that Coach Reynolds has over there at Drury is very good. Their men are currently ranked number 1 in the country for Division II. Their women, I think, were ranked 4th going into the meet. So great competition right here in town. We always have good crowds. It's a fun environment.
It says something for a Division I program like yours to be able to just go a few blocks across town to a Division II program that has won so many national titles and is so competitive. Has it always been that duel in the pool? Has it always kind of been an early measuring stick for you all to kind of see where you are?
It is, and again, I think you're exactly right. We're so fortunate to have a team of that caliber that we can compete with year in and year out, and what the history they have is incredible. They've won so many national titles. I don't even know if they can remember how many it is. It's incredible. And being an alum, there's a little something special there for me too. Ironically, they competed for a long time and then took a hiatus of not competing during the time I was at Drury. So while I was swimming there, we never competed against Missouri State and picked it back up when I started here. So it's great competition, and you can throw the Division I and the Division II numbers out the window. It's just really good athletes racing, and it's fun for Springfield.
Well, you came here from San Antonio, and I guess for Drury swimming?
That's right. Yep. I'd never been to Missouri. Came up on a recruiting trip and absolutely loved it, and so glad I came. Obviously met my wife. She was there playing basketball, so I am very happy I came to Drury.
Dave, when you look at how the season has started for you all, you mentioned the youth on the women's side of the ledger. You've also got a decent amount of local talent on both the men's and the women's side. What has recruiting locally been like the last couple of years, and how much has it changed for you?
Sure. Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. We've been fortunate to have a lot of local talent from the Springfield and neighboring towns. Cabrini Johnson, one of our fifth-year seniors, is from Rogersville. She just keeps getting better. This is her fifth year, so she's in that group that got granted an extra year of eligibility, and she just keeps getting better. For her to set the team record on Friday at our pool in October. You don't see team records in October, especially out of a fifth year who usually is going to need that rest at the end of the year to really show her cards. So Cabrini's on fire. On the guys' side, we've got Lucas Chadwell, who's one of our upperclassmen leaders now. We've watched him kind of blossom through his career here. Was a good swimmer at Glendale, was a state champ. We kept him in town, and he's just really hitting his stride now in his junior year.
Planning on going any place special to train during the Christmas break?
Normally we get down to Orlando, Florida. This year, unfortunately, we will be not making that trip. Our normal accommodations down there have been interrupted. So
hurricanes much?
Well, hurricanes and leaky pools. Every now and then you do run into that. So our normal spot that we go down there in Orlando is compromised. So we will be training here in what the kids call Club Hammonds.
Well, I say obviously there's two sides to each meet. I know you had some success on the diving side as well just recently in the back-to-back meets with Drury.
We did, and we've got just a great group of divers now. On the men's side, it's 3 junior boys, and they keep getting better. They came in all as freshmen together, so they've kind of learned the ropes with when their freshman year, they didn't know what to expect, and now as juniors, they're going to be a real key component for us at the conference championships. And then on the women's side, we've got a nice upperclassman senior in Courtney, and then just a great supporting cast there with her. So yeah, diving and what Coach Hulskamp does for our program is always a key part of our success.
So Dave, for conference affiliation, of course, as everybody knows, we're moving to Conference USA next year, but in recent years you've been competing the women in the Valley and the men in the MAC. So what's the situation this year?
Right. So prior to the Conference USA announcement for the school, we had already made plans on the men's side to or the Valley had made plans to now sponsor men's swimming. So because we had more Valley schools in the MAC and less MAC schools, it just made sense to flip that affiliation. So
sure.
Basically, same teams, the meet will be run pretty much the same way, but it will be under the Valley. That was already planned, and with Conference USA not having men's or women's swimming and diving, we will go ahead and stay in the Valley. So that tradition will continue.
So basically that means you're just changing the logo on the trophy. Is basically
I just
all
hope we
it
get
is.
that trophy. Yes,
well, yeah,
yes,
sure.
Yes, no, that's you're exactly right. Yeah, so the MAC, right, it just made sense.
Dave, you've got a former swimmer in Lily Despain that has been nominated for a major honor, the 2024 NCAA Woman of the Year Award. Tell us a little bit about what the award is and then kind of what this means and what Lily meant to your program.
Well, Corey, I'm kind of learning what the award is because we've never had anybody make it that far in this nomination. So, first of all, even for Missouri State Athletics and Missouri State University as a whole, to have your name associated with there's only 10 women in the entire NCAA Division I that are being recognized at this level. So, Lily is one of 10 representing our school at the national level. So, it's just been incredible, and it couldn't have happened to a better person. She's been wonderful for our program, kind of unique the way we found her. She transferred to us from the Naval Academy after 3 semesters there, originally from Fayetteville, Arkansas area, and just came in here and has just been a tremendous athlete, tremendous student, tremendous leader. She's been great in the community, all of which got her nominated for this award, and it's been so fun to reconnect with her. She's now at med school at University of Arkansas, where she's on a scholarship there, and just it's incredible. She's amazing.
So Dave, a lot of people are familiar with the needed upgrades in the football stadium, getting a lot of attention right now. What about the pool area? Anything realistically in mind there?
I think so. I think our locker rooms are probably the next piece. We made a major upgrade with some team lounges about 6 or 7 years ago. That's kind of been that was the wave of the future at that time, especially within our sport. You're not going to be putting electronics and carpet with the moisture of the pool. So for us to create those team lounges where the kids can study, there's a nutrition station in there, there's recovery things, giant big screen TV, they hang out in there. That's been wonderful. But we do need to make some upgrades to the locker rooms. You're not going to really change the pool much. We redid the deck. But I'll tell you what, I love our pool for dual meets and for training, and that's what we need it for. Our big meets are going to be at larger facilities for sure, but we train well in that pool, and it's a tough pool for teams to come into and race us.
Art, those the rooms that Dave's talking about, if you're not aware but you're familiar with Hammond Student Center, they kind of took over some of the old racquetball, handball courts down there, and the rooms really are nice. I've kind of popped my head into them a couple of times. You got a wall of food, a wall of TVs. It's a great place for the kids to have a space to themselves, either before training or after, right?
And we see it even in recruiting when we recruit kids that are going on visits to SEC schools and Big Ten schools, and I've had kids comment they don't even see that at some of those programs. So obviously we're trying to make gains in the recruiting world as well with something like that.
So, Dave, what comes up then after you've got a couple more meets, then you've got the break, the sort of training break? Is the second half of the year, is the schedule ramped up a little bit more, or does it stay the same?
Well, and it's hard for non-swimming people to really realize this, because every other sport, for the most part, all your in-season stuff really matters. For our sport, it's all about evaluating our athletes and figuring out what we need to adjust from a training standpoint. So these dual meets, these invitationals, these things that we go to all lead up, but really nothing matters until you get to the conference championship. So, sure, we want to win these meets and we want to perform at the highest level, but I have always put an extra emphasis on what we do at the conference championship. So, you go through, I probably have a losing record in dual meets because I try to put us up against the best competition we possibly can. But then, when we flip things to the conference championships, I like what we've done. And
at the end of the day, it's all about qualifying times, right? I mean, it's a team. It's like track and field and wrestling and some others. It's a team sport, but it's a very, at times, isolated and individualized sport.
It is, and it's trying to thread the needle of team dynamics with the individual success, because we've been fortunate to be towards the top of the conference championships year in and year out. And what that means is you may be in a lane training next to the person that you're trying to beat to get on that podium. So there have been many years where we've maybe swept the podium, first, second, third in an event, or again, you've got great competition in our pool Monday through Saturday to get you ready for that event.
Dave, excellent talk. We appreciate you being on with us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Swimming coach Dave Collins. When we come back, our next visit will be Corey and Jordan Fife, the women's cross-country coach. That's next on MoState Update.
Welcome back to the MoState Update, everybody. It's been an exciting show so far. Now we're going to turn our attention to women's cross country, and the only person to talk to about that is the man who's the director of track and field here at Missouri State University and cross country. They're getting ready for a very big week. So head coach Jordan Fife joins us now. And Coach, first of all, I appreciate you making time to come on the podcast with us. Give us a first run of what the week you all have, because you have one of your biggest meets of the year coming up this week.
Yeah, the conference championship up at Northern Iowa is Friday morning. The women's race is at 10:30, and so we're actually going to depart campus tomorrow around lunchtime, make our way up there, get in tomorrow night, and then kind of have the next day to go preview the course and just kind of get our bearings and just try to get ourselves ready for a big fight on Friday.
How important is that, the chance to get a layout, to borrow a term from golf, the course architecture, if you will? Is it a place that you've run at before, or is it always kind of a new location for you all?
Yeah, it's we have a site rotation. I have been up there with teams before, but we don't have anyone on our current roster who's been up to this course before. So I think it'll be just a really good chance for them to get on the course and see the terrain and where some of the key markers are, and just kind of get that in their mind before we go out there on Friday.
What is the makeup of the team like for you this year? Do you rely heavily on local talent? I know there's a football coach in town that I talk to all the time that tells me the first rule of his recruiting is it's as far as he can get on a tank of gas, because he feels like that's how you've got a good support structure based in for your student athletes. So kind of what's the recruiting perimeter like for you when it comes to a sport like cross country? Yeah,
we certainly want to start close to home first. People who are familiar with Missouri State and what it has to offer, and then we just kind of go out from there. And we found the most of our success kind of within maybe a 4-hour window here of Springfield, and so that reaches to Oklahoma and Kansas and Arkansas and most parts of Missouri and even into Illinois sometimes. And so that's kind of the traditional area that we kind of work from to help recruit there.
Are there strong cross-country programs that you can recruit from in Southwest Missouri? I feel like this will sound silly, but I've been to 3 middle school boys cross-country meets this year because of my nephew Joseph. And it seems to me like when we have gone to Nixa, I don't know what it is, but there are more kids running cross-country down in Christian County than just about anywhere else.
Sure. There's a lot of, really good talent in this area, and there's not a year that goes by that we're not recruiting, 1, 2, 3, 4 different people from local high schools, Republic, Nixa, Ozark, that list can kind of go on and on. But, it's growing, and I feel like, there's some things in the works that can hopefully continue to elevate the sport in this area and help make it even easier for us to recruit that much more close to home.
How does the roster makeup work? How many student athletes can you carry, and then how many actually get to compete? Because cross country, like track and field and some other sports, there's an individual side to the sport and there's a team side to the sport, correct?
Sure. Each meet, is a little bit different. Fortunately, most of the meets on our schedule for a regular season allow us to run our full roster, which this year was 22. That's the largest roster we've carried since I've been here. 2014 was my first year, and so that number has kind of just slowly grown over the last few years, and a lot of it just becomes out of interest in the program and better athletes having interest and us wanting to make sure we have room for them. And so we don't necessarily have a cap right now. There's a lot in the works with the House settlement that may limit us next year and have to trim that roster. But for now, having 22 on the roster this fall was really helpful from a depth standpoint. So all of our regular season meets, we were able to run everybody who was healthy and training well. Things have to get trimmed down for a conference championship. We can compete 9 on Friday, and then actually at the Midwest Regional 2 weeks later, we can only run 7. So things start to really get competitive even within the roster late in the year as we kind of trim down that roster.
Is there a certain reason why at the conference meet and then the regional meet the numbers have to be less? Is it just a logistic thing, or is there a certain time that has to be hit to qualify for those events?
Yeah, I think it's probably mostly logistic. When you have a conference championship, you want it to be kind of reserved for that kind of varsity group, which a lot of times is kind of referred to as that top 7. Our conference just happens to be a conference that puts a couple extra out there as well. And so nothing changing, with the scoring. You still have 7 that will, factor into the race of your 9, 5 of which are scoring, and then your 6 and 7 become displacers to other teams if they happen to be in front of their top 5.
I know every coach, regardless of sport, wants to go into a conference meet like this and have success. Does this one feel any different for you now, knowing that it will be the last in the Missouri Valley Conference? Because obviously a lot has been made about the university and the athletic department's move to Conference USA in another year.
Yeah, it's, especially to myself. I'm a graduate of Indiana State University, and so I've been a Valley person my whole collegiate career and after. And so leaving this group, will be bittersweet, but we're certainly excited about what's to come in Conference USA. And so, yeah, we want to make the most of this last opportunity before things, shift to a whole nother gear, and we're in an environment that we're not as familiar in. But, for now, doing the best we can to finish this year off as best we can.
Talk to me about who have been some of the top performers for your team over the course of the season.
Yeah, we have Mary Margaret Harris, who's a senior for us, just, tried and true up front for us. She's, I believe, either been our first or second athlete in every meet this year. And if I had to go back to last year, I don't think she was ever outside of our top 3 last year either. And then Tabby Fox is a redshirt freshman, sophomore, who has also led us a couple times this year. And so those 2 up front, Ella Cronhart has been a staple within our top 4. And then really our depth has been kind of showing throughout the year, where we've had, 7 or 8 different people all in our top 4 or 5 at different points in the season. So we're going to rely pretty heavily on that Friday.
And what does the Valley look like standing-wise this year? I know not all schools necessarily compete, so how big is the field going into the Valley meet?
Yeah, on the women's side, all 12 are out there. The men, obviously us and Murray State don't compete, so it's a 10-person or a 10-team field on the men's side. But the women's side, all 12 teams will be represented. For the majority of the season, I've felt like we're kind of right smack dab in the middle of things, and I think Friday will be no different. I'm projecting, somewhere between 4th and 7th is probably our most realistic landing spot, and we're absolutely going to do everything we can to try to be on the higher end of that if we can.
And then you turn around and you have 2 weeks to train. How different then is running in the conference tournament than the regional 2 weeks later? And is that the end of the road for you at that point in time of the season?
Yeah, that's a very different setup than the conference meet. The conference meet with 12 teams running 9 people each versus the regional meet, which is upwards of 35 or 36 teams if every school in the region decides to participate, and 7 per team for that. So a much larger field. Everyone's coming off that conference meet weekend and where, everybody's trying to peak for. And then the region meet becomes, who still has a little something in the tank. And, the teams at the very top are obviously trying to qualify for the national meet. But it's just a very difficult undertaking, especially in cross country, to make that meet. You're talking about, automatically the top 2 teams in the Midwest region, but you've got, 35, 36 different universities represented. And so, it's a tall task, but we certainly still want to go out there and try to have the best finish that we've had, in the last 10 or 15 years. And I think we have a team that can be, in that position.
You mentioned the fact that you're an Indiana State Sycamore, ran your college there. Then you come here to Missouri State, getting ready to leave the Valley. Have you started to look ahead any to kind of how your schedule will change and what is in store as a move to Conference USA comes next year?
Sure. We found out the news, last spring when we were actually in Terre Haute for the conference championships outdoor. And so immediately it was pulling up, Conference USA's cross-country, indoor and outdoor results and just kind of seeing, what does this competition look like? And, it's going to be another very competitive conference. There's no doubt about it. And, we're looking forward to it. From a travel standpoint, one of the pluses, with this move is we don't have to really change much of our regular season at all. The only difference for us is going to be, wherever that conference championship's being held that particular year is probably going to be, a little further off than we're used to, and we'll have to travel a little differently to those sites. But, for the majority of the season, we're able to stay close to home, get good competition in, keep the student athletes, in the classroom, keep them in meets where, the parents can easily get to. So that's going to be a plus for us.
Coach, I'd be remiss before I let you go if I didn't ask a little bit about track and field. Obviously, it's cross-country season right now, and I won't ask you to spill the beans on the schedule or anything. I know it's not posted yet, but you wear a couple of different hats here as the director of track and field and cross-country. I assume the preparation has begun on that part of your season.
Yeah, absolutely. The other two kind of main event groups, our sprinters and hurdlers, that event group, plus our field event group. They've been working extremely hard this fall, and they've been doing a lot of testing these last couple of weeks, and things are looking really promising there with some really young athletes. And we'll open December 6th and 7th over at Pittsburgh State, something close to home, and then we'll be releasing our schedule, sometime in the next week or two. But we're really excited about just a really big youthful team that we think has tons and tons of potential, and we're just looking forward to seeing if they can, show that right away, or if we're going to have to, wait till we get to Conference USA to see what they're really made of. But it's been a great fall so far, and we're really looking forward to that. As soon as cross country's over, we'll be able to look even more closely at that.
Well, we snuck you in under the wire before the conference meet on cross-country. We will get you back earlier in the season as the calendar turns and gets us into track and field season. But head coach Jordan Fife, thank you for the time. Good luck in the Valley Tournament and in the regional. We'll be pulling for you.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a break. More MoState Update when we come back.
Well, we're going to take next week off from the podcast series with so much going on, men's basketball on the road. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. November 13th will be our next episode. However, there's still lots of ways to follow Missouri State.
Absolutely. Obviously, you can go to MissouriStateBears.com. You can follow them on their social media pages, and we'll still have podcast content coming out, just not a new episode of MoState Update. You'll, of course, be able to get Wednesday night's new episode of Inside the Den with Ryan Beard, wherever you get your podcasts. And usually, I think I normally get it about Monday morning to afternoon. We'll have the MoState football recap, where we bring you kind of a little bit of the pregame show, all the highlights, and our postgame show, postgame conversation with Ryan Beard. Hopefully, after another Bears victory, this time over Southern Illinois, those will all be available wherever you get your podcasts throughout the week.
Indeed. Our thanks to swimming coach Dave Collins and cross-country coach Jordan Fife for being our guests. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks on MoState Update.
You've been listening to the MoState Update with Art Hains and Corey Riggs. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Missouri State Sports Network.